Everyone in business wants to get paid faster. Over 40 years I've developed a plan which enables you to do just that. So come down to the studio and I'll share it with you now. So here we are in the studio. I've worked at improving this plan over the years, and this is the result of decades of trying to persuade customers to pay up. This is my 4-point plan to get paid faster. 1. Get prepared to chase those debts. 2. Get an escalation strategy. 3. Chase that payment. And 4. Deal with those excuses. So let's go for it. You need to get prepared to chase. You need to make sure you've got all the information that you need, invoices, statements, orders, and all the details of the account. Then put yourself in the right frame of mind. You should think that you've got a boss who's a cruel tyrant. Everyone's scared of him because he's a right so-and-so. This means that when you make the call to chase payment, you really are doing the customer a good turn because you're saving them from your boss. And everybody is scared of your boss. Let's get an escalation strategy. You need to think through what to do when you chase and you don't get a promise of payment. The most powerful idea is to go round to the customer's premises and sit there until some action occurs. This isn't for the faint-hearted, but if getting paid is important enough to you, then you should do it. You should simply be persistent, but don't shout or get abusive. Never ever suggest or intimate violence. Doing that simply invites a violent response, and that can be seriously bad for your health. Another alternative can be cutting supplies or putting the customer on stop. But that may also lose you the customer, so you do need to think about it. A third alternative is to compose a letter giving details of the legal action that you're going to commence immediately. So now you have some ideas of how to escalate when you don't get that promise. You can move on to actually chasing the payment. When you pick up the phone, all you want to do is get a payment promise. This is a persistence game, and there's nothing personal in it. There's really no need to get angry or upset. Take a deep breath and pick up the phone. Ask to be put through to the person who deals with payment. They probably won't be available, so you ask when they will be available, then you phone back at that time. Eventually you'll either get through or you need to use your escalation strategy. When you do speak to the person, all you want is a payment promise. If you get an acceptable promise, then thank them. If the promise isn't acceptable, then use the boss ploy. I'm sorry, I can't tell my boss that. I really do need a better promise. If that doesn't get a result, then the situation has now escalated to a new level, and you need to deploy your escalation strategy. Whatever happens, record the conversation in writing. If you have a payment promise, then confirm it by email. When the date comes, phone back to check the payment will happen. So, let's talk about the excuses customers make to delay payment. The excuses. The most usual excuse is that the invoice hasn't been cleared for payment. So you ask, who's responsible for clearing the invoice? Then you go round the persistent chasing loop until you get to talk to them. If there is a valid reason for not clearing the invoice, then you need to address it. If there isn't a valid reason, then you need to insist that it should be cleared. Remember to say that your boss will not forgive you if it isn't. If that produces no response, then the escalation loop has to start again. The second kind of excuse is that it has been cleared for payment in 10, 60 or 90 days' time. If you can accept this, then fine, make a note of the proposed payment date and phone back on that date to make sure it is being paid. If the date is unacceptable, then you need to escalate again. The third type of excuses are the silly ones. For instance, a recent one I had was, I can't pay, my boss is in India for 3 months. A surprisingly common one is the mother-in-law has just died. How many mother-in-laws does a man have? Or maybe the books are with the accountants. Whatever it is, you simply need to insist on a promise of payment, and if that doesn't happen, escalate. The fourth kind of excuse is the most worrying. I'm sorry, we haven't any cash at the moment. This calls for an immediate and forceful escalation. Every time you have a conversation, write it down, who you spoke to, what they said, and when you are next to phone. The goal is, by being so persistent, you will always be at the top of the queue. Getting angry or shouting is simply counterproductive. So the bullet points are: invent a boss who is always demanding cash. Have all the information to hand. Make sure you've got a system for recording when the next call is due, and make that call when it is due. If you need to escalate, then take the time to consider the correct escalation strategy. This has been How to Chase Payment in Business, part of the How to in Business series from Birchills Telecom. As always, if you've got any comments, please use the form below. I'd like to make a video on the best payment excuses of all time, so if you've got any suggestions, please let me know. Thanks for watching.